Going into class. So again, so we look forward to this, obviously with the opening up to some additional folks from around the Northeast. It'll give us an opportunity to maybe expand some of the types of questions we get and maybe some of the additional information that's out there. So we look forward to that. So so we have, let's see, so we have 36 on the call so far. Ted Cryer, are you on the call yet? I know you had a question earlier. And Dave Berube, I saw you've just joined. Dave had a question regarding putting a different differential in your car. I know Dave's got a BJ8. So your question was, what's the impact by putting a 3.54 differential into your car, Dave? Is that your question?
I would say yes. Yep. You know, what's involved? What gear actually is it that you change? And then what impact does it have on the car? Like, you know, RPMs, higher speed, so forth.
Yeah, so basically it allows the opportunity for a car, if you get a car with a hypoid rear axle, which, you know, after BN2s and all the way to the end had hypoid rear axles, 5-stud axles, you can put that gear in there, a 3.54, which allows you for a better ability for cruising. You don't have to be putting your car into overdrive as frequently. I did have a situation when I was up in Quebec at Charleroi for the conclave up there. I did lose my overdrive in my BJ8 coming home, and I drove home in 4th gear without any problems at all. So it gives you a little longer legs, gives you a little better gas mileage. And it, you know, with the torquey engines of a 6-cylinder or even a big 4-cylinder of 100 engine, you know, there's no problem with getting off the line, even with that higher gear.
Another thing I would just mention, Peter, that it also requires the speedometer to be recalibrated.
It does. It's off, you know, several percentage points as it relates to that. So you're right, Tom. It does. It's not something you have to do, but you just need to take that into account as it relates to it. Your car will still run fine, but the calibration will be off with a different gear set.
It's one of the nicest things I ever did for my BJ8. Makes it much more favorable to drive. Yeah.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. Matter of fact, I've just put in, so my 100 is a BN1, which has a spiral bevel axle, just a 4-stud. And I've just installed a 3.66 gear. That's what you can put into the early cars. And I just put that in there. I got it from Hardy Engineering in the UK. We met Bill McDonough when we were out at Conclave, and they're kind of the premier builders of transmissions and gear sets in the UK. And so they built one for me, and I've installed that in my BN1. So haven't driven it yet, but I'm looking forward to the difference with that, because I find I was having to put that into overdrive very quickly. So other comments or feedback as it relates to different differentials you can put in your cars?
I have one question.
I would be curious. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead, Michael.
I have one question. I have found that most of the ones that I have put in the 354s, they had a little bit more noise than an original differential. Is there other people found the same thing?
I did not, Michael. Mine was installed probably 20 years ago, and it was one of the original Mike Lempert. I don't know if you recall, he had a foundry make several sets once he had 750, I believe at the time, people willing to buy it. So it was one of those, and I had somebody else install it. I pulled somebody somebody's got their we've got sound coming in from somebody else on the,
yeah. If you're not speaking, if you wouldn't mind putting your computer on mute, that would be preferable. Thanks, Tom.
Sorry about that.
No problems.
I pulled the pumpkin and just sent it out to have somebody do the actual work, and I had heard that you know, if it's not set up properly, it would be noisier, but mine is as quiet as can be. It was no difference from the 390s that I had in there. So, but there have been many other iterations of that gear set, you know, since then. So I can't speak to that.
you know.
Tom, I've got the exact same gear set in my BJ8. It was in 10 years ago. Maybe you remember Paul Donnell, who was a New England Healey Club member. He was doing that. So I pulled the pumpkin and he came in and installed it in my shop, and it's been great. So Michael, I have not noticed any additional noise with mine.
Good. Okay, that's fine. The other comment I'd make is one other way to achieve longer legs is to find a 28% overdrive unit. That way you don't need to change the speedometer, and it does give you a lot longer legs.
Peter, what
So-
ratio do you use?
I've got a 3.54. Again, it was that Mike Lempert gear set that Tom just talked about. That's what I have in mind. Michael's not doing that any longer. But I believe you can buy those gear sets from Head for Heelys or H Spares or some of those. I don't believe Moss sells them, but I believe from the UK you can.
I think
And,
Dennis Welsh offers them also.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Yep.
I've had an experience with Dennis Welch. It wasn't good. They were just noisy as can be, and I finally bought the gears from AH Spares and had them put together locally, and it's much better. And but I'm wondering if do you get sometimes a noise from the from the overdrive? It seems to me it's a little more noisy from when the overdrive's in than when it's not. Is there any comment on that? Not bad, but it's a little more.
Well, the noise is actually probably coming from the overdrive. They can make noise.
They can make noise?
Yes, most certainly. Yep.
And did they sound a lot like did they sound a lot like a noisy
They do sound very similar to a differential.
okay. No chance for that except no cure for that except to rebuild it, right?
Yeah, well, it's usually the annulus gear that's noisy.
The what gear?
The annulus gear, the internal teeth in the inside the overdrive, they're the ones that seem to wear out. So you just have to replace that.
Okay.
Just rebuild the overdrive. It's easy job.
Yeah. All it takes is money, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, and in my BJ8, I'm running a 354 rear end and a 28% overdrive.
Wow.
For cruising or touring, it's about ideal.
Great. So Bob, which cars had the 28% overdrive?
Oh, the
All 106s and all BN2.
yeah.
Okay.
And
460
BN1, sorry.
which is the last?
106s and BN1s and BN2s. Other than the very earliest BN1s had a 32%, but they're rare as hen's teeth.
What is, if I might ask, what is the BJ8 ratio, standard ratio, overdrive?
22%.
BJ8 is 22, the standard one?
That's correct. And 28 is 106.
Okay.
It's not as much of a difference as the differential.
Okay.
And those are direct replacements, those overdrives to a BJ8 trans?
Now, the 354, that normally would come in a non-overdrive car? Because I believe
Right.
my car has the 354 with the overdrive. The fellow I got it from, Dan Salmon, told me that those were highway gears, as he referred to them. What is the
Michael, I
normal
believe
ratio?
you're correct. That originally the non-overdrive cars had the 354 differentials.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand what's going on. Thank you.
As did Wolseley's.
And they're
Lots-
really common here in North
Oh yeah,
America.
they're all over the
Michael.
place. Those things.
So Pete,
Okay.
Dave Berube again?
Yeah.
Yeah, so far a couple of guys have said they have sent their differentials out to have the gears changed. So what's the degree of difficulty with it? Is it something that has to be done by a professional?
Well, it has to be done by a machine shop, I would say. I don't think it's going to be something you're going to do in your garage, Dave.
Okay, so it's not
You got to
just a
get the
gear
proper
swap.
backlash and all those. So Bob and Michael, anything else you want to add to that as it relates to replacing putting the 3.54 gears?
Well, I just built one this last week for a customer, and it was he supplied the gears and shipped the pumpkin and the gears to us, and it was a Dennis Welsh setup, and I got to tell you, it was slightly different to any others that I've done. I've done several of the Mike Lempert sets, and I've had no problems with any of them. I know I got this set up. You have to set the backlash and you have to set the mesh on the teeth, but I don't know. I find it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I know when Paul Donnell did mine, there was a machine shop out in Greenfield, Massachusetts that built the gear set for him, and we just to replace with the pumpkin, so it worked very well.
Now
Well,
I do have access to quite a selection of shims, and it does necessitate changing some of the shims for different thicknesses. So that's something, if you don't have the shims, it's much more difficult.
Bob,
So Dave Berube, you can send it to Bob Ewell at Auto Farm.
There you go. Question answered. Thanks, guys. That was good. One last thing. The speedometer having to be readjusted after this. Is that something you would send out? It's not something you can actually do yourself?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tom.
I had a company called, as you all know, Neisinger do mine. They were still in business. I'm a little sketchy on what their status or the status of former people are, but basically what they did, Dave, was they asked you to pull the speedometer, roll the car 52 point something feet, 52.8 feet. I think that's 1/100th of a mile. And count the number of revolutions on the cable and tell them exactly to the 10th of a revolution. And that's what I did. I rolled it down my driveway for 52 something feet and sent them how many times the cable rotated, and speedometer came back dead accurate. So that was my experience with Neisinger.
Yeah, I had the same experience.
Because I do believe some of the workers from Neisinger, Neisinger is not, they're selling Smith gauges, but they're not rebuilding anything after the flood they had on Long Island several years ago. But I do understand several of their employees are off on their own in rebuilding instruments. And we have it on our in the members only section on the website. We do have that. So again, any of those members that are calling in from Quebec or Ontario or elsewhere, you're more than welcome to go on to the AHCA New England, so AHCA-newengland.org website. And when you go to the members only section, you use the password Healey, Healey lowercase, and you can get down. We do have a set of providers and service providers and repair facilities in there, and we've got it sorted by category. So we do have that gentleman who came from Neisinger. We do have him included on that page.
I had an experience with changing a differential in my 100M. I was on my way to a cruise night, and the overdrive decided to quit. I couldn't get it back into overdrive. I didn't really have the time to pull the overdrive out and rebuild it, not knowing that much about overdrives. So I happen to have a 3.5 pumpkin sitting in my back garage. I pulled it out. Next door neighbor helped me undo all the nuts and bolts, and we pulled it through the hole in the back where the batteries would normally be, and put it in. And I bought a speedometer, 140 mile an hour speedometer. I think it was on eBay. Put it in. My next door neighbor and I went out for a ride in the car. I took a GPS, and believe it or not, that speedometer was right on the money at 60 miles an hour. But that's
Wow.
my experience with it, and it was easy to do. We did it in an afternoon and pulled the old one out, put the new pumpkin in. You just had to pull the axles, and
Yeah.
it was actually an easy job. I'm a little mechanically inclined, but I'm not a mechanic, but I was able to do that, and I still haven't changed the overdrive yet, and it works quite well.
Yeah. Are you, Craig, are you really calling from Australia?
I am, sir. I'm in
Wow.
Sydney. It's about, well, let's see, it's 11:15 here in the morning.
Okay.
And I didn't come up in the email, and I thought, oh, I got to tune into that. But yes, I'm
Good.
in. No, is Mike? Is he down in New Zealand?
Michael, where are you right now?
I'm in Stouffville, Ontario. Near
Still
Toronto.
there? Oh, you going for Christmas?
No, not this year. No, we just come back from a cruise. So we had a great cruise, but I'm probably sticking around here this winter.
Well, I'm here for another month, so enjoying the sunshine. It's about 24 here, and you guys can have the snow.
Well, Craig, thanks for joining us. We appreciate that. We've gone global here, so that's great. Now, so Ted Fryer, I did see you did join us. So you had some issues with your 100, your BN1 as it related to overdrive, correct?
Yeah, yeah. Is someone else? Did I interrupt somebody?
Go ahead, Craig. Ted, sorry. Ted Fryer.
Yeah, actually, we Gabe helped me, and we brought it home today, and it's sitting in the garage for me to paint and then someday put back in. What I tried to get hold of John Esposito and didn't get a call back, and I happened to run into Peter Genovese, who's done many of them working with Peter and with Gabe, and he said, "Sure, bring it on over to the shop." So I did one day, and he started taking it apart. It was still locked up. That was the problem. It was locked up. Couldn't get it to come out, and so we started taking it apart. And a couple of things we found wrong with it. The first thing was when he pulled I think they're called accumulator pistons. There's two of them. There seemed to be a fair amount of debris in there, and for some reason, and he also found that the filter on the bottom wasn't really secured with a bolt, and there weren't any magnets in it. So we think some debris was over the years getting around in there, but the real problem was the ring assembly for the clutch thrust, which is a plate, and the clutch thrust assembly bolts through it, and it has 4 studs and about 3-4 inches long, and they were bent, and not the plate, the actual studs. So
Wow.
he couldn't put it back into the casing, and even the little square plates that lock it in there wouldn't fit onto it either. So that was definitely a problem. Of course, the bad thing is these accumulator or ring assemblies are made of unobtainium. The good thing, because Pete's done many of these over the many years, he happened to have 3 spares right there, and one of them was in nice shape, and it just fell right into place like it was supposed to, and the little blocks went on there just as nice as can be. So he said, we can certainly use this. The clutch surface was in fine shape, so that was good luck for me. And then he made up a little list of things to do to refresh the rest of the assembly. So we got new operating pistons, which the old ones had a metal rings on them like a piston and rings. And he went to upgrade them to the later style with rubber O-rings. And also another piston assembly that goes sideways. So all that, the cylinders were cleaned up and all put together, and everything seems to be working fine, at least bench testing it. And brought it home today, and going to put a new coat of the Healy green paint on it, and then wrestle it back into place in the car, and then wait for warm weather to test it out. So, Peter had never seen that a ring assembly problem like that before. So if anybody's seen it, I don't know if maybe the couple of times that I did for a short distance, 10 feet or less, back up the car while it was locked, that would have done something to bend them. But anyway, so far that's the story so far. And the good thing is to always find something obvious when you're taking something apart to fix, and then being able to do some upgrades to it. So, and particularly with someone who's been doing it many years. So very happy about everything so far. So
Great, great. Yeah, you've been working on that for a bit, haven't you, Ted?
yeah, kind of lost momentum for a while there, but then yeah, he's semi-retired, but he's got a nice machine shop and a really interesting setup, and he just knew exactly what he was taking apart. Like I said, he's done many of them, and
Oh, good.
so I was like, and he's only like 8 miles away from the house, so I'm working
Oh, wow.
for it. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not sure what whiteboard is. Sorry about this. Wait. Come on. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what that whiteboard was, but okay. Well, well, thank you, Ted, for that. I know we've talked about that in the past couple sessions, so appreciate that.
If any of the experts have any comments about that ring assembly and the 4 studs being bent, I'm open ears to it. But like I said, he never saw that before.
I'd agree. I've pulled many overdrives apart, and I've
Yeah,
never encountered that.
Yeah, something must have locked it up, or maybe I don't know if backing it up a few feet when it was locked up, and the overdrive was engaged, if that would have bent something. But really strange. I'm saving that as a trophy on the dirty parts shelf in the garage.
Okay.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. John Bridgman, are you on the call? Okay. And then Sam Cass, are you on the call? Sam, you had a question last time about ignitions for a Bugeye, and I suggest you talk to Alan Fisher.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead,
Oh, okay.
Sam.
Anyway, I have a couple of these reproduction ignition switches for the Bugeye. They
Yeah.
really don't work very well. They're very hard to turn. And what happens is once you get to the second one click it to the second selection of the headlight, they tend to turn inside the dashboard, and they don't work like an original switch, which is nice and has a nice smooth motion to it. Signal lights, headlights. So I was wondering if anybody had um, uh, any information on how to fix those, or where to get a really good Lucas ignition switch. And what I was wondering, I see these ignition switches, they're in green boxes. So are those really Lucas, or are they made by some other country?
Not sure. Did you talk to Alan Fisher, Sam?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't. No.
I mean, he is the Bugeye guy, and he's got a lot of great new old stock or good used equipment. I would definitely talk to Alan. You had that question last month too.
Yeah, last month it was about the header.
Okay, but I think you talked about the ignition as well. But okay,
Yeah,
but
yeah, I did. Yeah, yeah, you're right.
I would talk to Alan. I mean, he's certainly has good experiences. Now I do know a friend of mine in the UK. He did buy one of those position switches they call the guillotine from Bugeye Guy, and he was pleased with it. So I'm not sure what other providers are selling with that. Anyone else have any thoughts as it relates to sources for good new old stock or good used ignition switches for Mark I sprites?
I'm really surprised to hear that a reproduction part doesn't work.
They're pretty junky, really. But what else I wanted to say to you guys? You're talking about these overdrives. I came across a guy the other day. I don't know if you know him. His name is Stewart at Custom Spares in Brewster. Nobody
Not
knows him.
familiar
Okay,
with them.
he's got a overdrive big Healy transmission among all his other parts that he has. So if anybody's interested in buying one, he's got one over there. It's in Brewster, New York.
Ted Pryor, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, I know Stuart extremely well for a number of decades. Been over there about once or twice or 3, 4 times a year. So yeah, a great source for stuff. Maybe even if you have the Lucas number, try him for that switch. He has quite a stock of new old stock stuff.
Yeah.
And in down in the basement area, he has a pile of used parts. Is probably where this transmission comes from that he picked up from somebody in the club. And
Yeah.
there's some body parts and so on and so forth. So when someone's looking for something, it's well worth to give a call. He's a really pleasant guy, pretty chatty, but he's a good guy. So
Yeah, I was there last week and he took me
Yeah.
down into the basement for,
Yeah.
I've been there like 3 times down that basement. Anyway, he's
Yeah.
got a lot of Bugeye parts. So
Yeah.
there was he did have a switch. It was still in the dashboard, but it was frozen. And he has no other outlet to get those switches because he tells me that the Lucas switches that come in the green boxes are really not very good.
Yeah, he's very quality conscious, and because he does manufacture some parts himself. So
Yeah.
yeah, he's a good guy to ask about if you're talking to him about the quality of something or where to get them.
but
So yeah,
he didn't have any idea where I can get a good switch or a what they call a red box Lucas
yeah.
switch. The red
I mean,
box.
if you have the Lucas original part number, which is on the switch, don't be afraid a couple times a week to go out and poke around on eBay. I have found stuff out there that
Yep.
somebody puts out there, and reasonably priced, sometimes not so reasonable, but it's the original stuff, and it's a real treasure to find some of that stuff
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, I'll keep doing that. All right, thanks,
Yeah.
guys. Just want to let you know about that transmission in case anybody needs one.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
No, thank you. So are there other questions tonight that people didn't submit earlier? Any other questions, things people would like to discuss tonight?
Well, Pete, I have a question.
Please.
So I've heard a lot of reference to Mike Lempert, who was a
Yeah.
neighbor of mine in New Jersey 20 years ago,
Was he
and
really?
moved to Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. And actually, at my house, a friend of mine from Cape Cod bought a BJ8 from, I think it was a BJ8 from Mike.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing we're talking about the same person. I
Yeah,
had no
no,
idea.
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
had no idea he was an expert of any type in this area.
He wasn't an expert as much as he was a sort of an entrepreneur. He just got a group of guys to get a foundry to do this. He actually went into the steering wheel business. In fact, I think if you Google Mike Lempert steering wheels, you'll find that he has. There's a website. It's unclear to me as to whether or not he's still in business or not. But he was making all kinds of steering wheels for different cars. In fact, he made one for my XKE and did a very nice job. But he used to be a member of the New Jersey region of the Austin-Healey Sports and Touring Club. And I believe the Healey he drove was a green big Healey. Could that have been the Healey you're talking about?
He definitely had a British Racing green that my friend bought. He also had a 106, as I recall, that he was restoring. And I actually stayed at his house in Mount Pleasant a few times because my daughter and his daughter were very close. And if I was flying down to Florida, we'd stop and visit with them and then carry on and all that kind of stuff. So this is your typical small world, not Australia story, but anyway, it's amazing how this stuff comes up.
I have two of his wheels on two of my Healeys. So you're right. He does beautiful work with that. And again, this was 10, 15 years ago. So
yeah, I've heard stories that he's difficult to get a hold of now. I don't even know if he's doing anything, but I still think you can find Mike Lempert steering wheels, a website of some sort up and running.
Well, that's going to cause me to call him tomorrow. I have, unless he's changed his cell phone, I have it. So, you know.
Well, and I do believe his son I think they did do an additional batch of those 3.54 gears, like maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
He did, Peter. There was a second batch many years later. Yeah.
Yep. And I thought his son was selling those, but I'm not sure if that's still the case. I haven't heard anything recently.
But last year I was going to send the steering wheel from my BN2, which was a less than, down to him, and just never got around to it. But he was very responsive to emails, and definitely a year ago he seemed to be fully in business. So
Okay, good to know, Ted. Thank you. Okay,
Peter, I,
please.
I just
Again?
Googled him and it came right up. And here's a picture of all of his steering wheels on. So
He is
he must
beautiful work on the steering wheels.
yeah.
Looks like he's
And-
still in business.
In
Looking
my
at the-
recollection, he was an engineer. I don't remember what type or who he worked for, but
Yeah, not sure. Other questions or comments?
I had a fun question.
Okay,
We
Scott.
were all talking last few tech meetings about positive and negative grounded systems. So it got me
Were.
to thinking. It got me to thinking. And one of the questions was, and I still don't have any answer to this, but why would one be better than the other? But here's my one fun question. If I took and I don't know my answer, but it makes sense. If I took a test light, found an appropriate ground, and touched the frame of my positively grounded vehicle, would it illuminate?
Can't help you
You know
there.
what I mean? Like, it's backwards. So
Michael
the positive
Salter
went
shook
to
his
the
head no.
frame of the vehicle. I'm sorry. Sorry, Peter.
You're taking your test light.
But
What are
it
you
would.
hooking the lead of the test light to?
Right. I would have to find, which I don't know, but an appropriate ground, which would be the opposite. So I would think,
No.
something positive on the vehicle
No,
in
no,
my
no,
mind.
no. If you say
But
you
is the
clip
chassis live?
you clip the test light onto, say, the fuse, one of the fuses,
Yeah.
and put the probe on the frame, the light will come on, whether it's negative or positive ground, unless it's an LED test light.
Okay.
They don't
Okay.
work backwards.
Wow.
I would go right from the
So
battery
even
to the ground. Go from one of the battery posts, the positive post to the battery. Put your test light one side on that and the other side on the frame, on the chassis ground. And if
A
it
positive
lights,
ground car?
if it lights,
And
you
it
got
would
it
illuminate?
ground. Or vice versa. If you put it
No.
on the negative terminal and put it
Yes,
to
of course.
chassis.
Of course, or vice versa. But here's another question, and I don't know, we don't even have to answer, just my brain thinking. Would it be dangerous if I was standing in a puddle in the rain and I, touched the frame? Would
No,
that me? You know what I
no,
mean? Is that an
No.
issue?
no.
Only if you're in your
Nothing
bare
would ever
feet.
happen like that. Yeah, exactly. Like, is that an issue?
It's only 12
Would you
volts DC.
could
It's only 12 volts DC. It won't hurt you. You won't feel it.
And
well,
it
in a
acts.
way, if I grab both burnaby term to post, I would feel it.
No, if you can hold on to
It's
do battery posts and you don't feel them.
I can tell you in 5 years, we've never gone down this path. People trying to commit
And
suicide.
we can end it here too. It's just I have fun thinking about all the cool things that we talk about on here, and that's why.
Well, thank you, Scott.
Thank you guys. It's a lot
You're
of
welcome.
fun.
Mike Hirsch, did you have something you want to add?
Yeah, well, the two things. Well, one about the battery, they function the same way. As you've got to go from, from a one end, from what in this case the negative pole of the battery is the live end, if you will, and then to ground it'll illuminate. Whereas the positive end, and you touch the positive end to the ground, you're not doing anything. You're not doing anything. You're just touching one. You're just touching a dead piece of wire. So that was just one thing. But on previous one, I think I told you I had a problem with my speedometer and the right angle drive. I got a new one. It failed after 7 miles.
No, no.
Yeah. What do you know? So quite a while afterwards, I finally got to fixing it, and I called Moss, and no question, they just sent me a new one, and we managed to put it in without taking the transmission tunnel cover off. What we did is it had
the spacer washer. We put 2 spacer washers in. It's been fine ever since. So that was just a little thing that we found. So I guess the way it was rigged, the 1 spacer washer, there's probably too much end pressure on it, I guess, is the problem. And this and with the 2, it has now run several hundred miles, and hopefully it will continue a little while longer.
Okay. Great.
Pete, I have a question.
Please.
Since we're on overdrives, my overdrive has always worked well, and this summer I noticed it doesn't come out of overdrive consistently. It'll go in overdrive immediately and snap right in, but when I turn it off, it doesn't come out.
Are you
Any
putting
ideas?
power on it?
Excuse me?
Are you putting power on it when you take it out?
No, I've tried lifting off my foot, coasting, and it doesn't. And then it will spontaneously. And, for no reason, it'll just all of a sudden come out. I've checked the oil in it, and it's fine.
With overdrive units, that's any sort of diagnosis like that. The first thing you have to determine is if there is power on the overdrive solenoid. If the overdrive solenoid has power on it, then the overdrive should be an overdrive. If the overdrive solenoid does not have power on it, then you should be out of overdrive. That's where you start. And then they are completely different diagnoses, plural of plosive. And you need to diagnose. You have to determine that before you do anything else.
So you're saying that the power may not be disconnecting.
That's right. For some reason, the power may not be being removed from the solenoid.
Yeah.
So Peter, I'm sorry, my understanding is incorrect. I thought to disengage, you had to have power.
No, to engage it, you have power. To disengage, you turn the solenoid off.
All right. Just say, when you're talking about power, you're talking about electric power to the solenoid or engine power, because
electric 12 volts at the solenoid.
Oh,
but to disengage it, you have to boot the gas.
Well, that's part of the control system setup, but that's beside the point. If there's power at the solenoid, the overdrive should be working. If there's no power at the solenoid, the overdrive should not be working.
Yes.
If you've still got power at the solenoid and you think it should be out of overdrive, then there's a fault with the control circuit, which is maintaining the power on the solenoid.
So it's more than the switch.
It's
like
usually the throttle relay that causes that.
That's up on the firewall?
Yes.
Okay.
The throttle linkage is connected to it.
Right.
Yeah.
So what kind of car, what car are we talking about?
BJ8.
Well, you have that switch that prevents the overdrive from coming out of overdrive unless you push down on the throttle. There's a switch in there that has a very fine adjustment on it.
Yeah.
What's that switch called? Do you remember? Does anyone remember?
I know where it is. I don't.
Yeah,
I call it a throttle position switch, but
yes,
it's got a different name.
But you're not supposed to be able to come out of overdrive unless the engine is pulling the car. In other words, if the engine is holding the car back, you're not supposed to be able to get out of overdrive.
Yeah, it's a function of how much throttle you have on, and it's meant to be, I think,
very fine
about a quarter throttle. Yeah,
and if you have that adjustment right, it is very easy. It works very nicely. But if you have it wrong, everything's screwed up. It just doesn't work. And and when you downshift and you come out of overdrive at the same time, push in the throttle and give it a little burst of on your accelerator, and that will take care of it.
So is the adjustment in the rod going to the throttle linkage?
It's the clamp on the shaft.
The linkage is on the shaft, and you adjust that linkage on on that shaft so that it is just right. And I think you're looking, oh, who's a knot, is that the name? A knot?
David Knock.
They have a description, I think, in there how to do it.
Okay.
You got to get that right. If you don't get that right, it's just a confusing thing. You wonder why the thing isn't working.
When I was going down the
Am I
path,
am I right about that, Michael?
Yeah, you're pretty well correct. If you look at the shaft that arm is on, there's a slot in the end of it. The trick is you put a screwdriver in the slot. Well, the way I do it is I put a screwdriver in that slot, and then I put a multimeter across the terminals of the switch, and I turn it I adjust it until you get about a quarter throttle, and the switch opens. It's as simple as that.
Right, either a quarter or even less. It
Yeah.
depends what you want.
That's right.
But I have mine adjusted so perfectly now that all I have to do is just tap on that, push in the clutch as I'm downshifting and take it out of overdrive and just tap on the accelerator and it works perfectly.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You know what? I'm sure that's what it is because I had to do a lot of adjustments of the throttle shafts after I moved the carburetors. So that's
And you
probably
know
what happened.
helps?
That
What
probably
helps
got
is-
knocked out.
What helps is to have one of those switches apart so you can see how it works. And once you see how it works, it's very simple. It's just when you're looking at this switch and you don't know what's in there, it is very confusing.
Thank you.
when I was going down my mystery path about my Healey overdrive hanging up, and I went to the Norman Knock book. I happened to have one, and one of the first things he said, if you can't get it out of overdrive, was the interrupter switch. Was a little switch on the side,
Yeah.
which is pretty simple to change. And when I took my gearbox and overdrive to Peter Genovese, that's one of the first things he checked to see if it was working. So that's pretty simple, pretty simple thing to look at too. So
The interrupter switch.
it's on the side of the shifter tower.
Yep.
Yeah, there's just a little switch with a wire coming to it, and then the wire goes over to the solenoid.
Yes, I know where it is.
Yeah, and that can be problematic. And I've even heard about it may not be adjusted far enough in or out or something like that, and putting a washer to it or something. But that's pretty simple to check. And a couple of good sources have said don't overlook it. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Ted.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Martin. Appreciate it. Other questions?
I just want to make sure I understand. So while we're talking about power with the overdrive, it's if we want to disengage the overdrive, we want to have the gas power as opposed to electric power. In other words, you want to have your foot on the gas pedal if you want to disengage the overdrive. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
If the switch is working right, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's where we got into some
Let me-
semantics problem because when you're talking power, some people think engine power versus electrical power. So it helps just especially when we're on a remote thing like this to be specific as whether you're talking electric or gas power because they are to do the overdrive. You need a mixture of both and just to make sure we're talking about the same type of power, just a semantics thing.
Well, that's
Michael,
why I
you have something you
asked,
wanted to
because
add?
I'm assuming I have electric power.
Yes.
And I thought I wanted to have my foot on the gas pedal when I disengaged overdrive.
That's exactly what I was getting confused about too. So we're not alone in our confusion.
What's the answer?
Can I explain how the system works, perhaps? The overdrive has two things in that circuit. There's a relay and there's the throttle switch. And the relay has a hold circuit in it. So when you turn the overdrive on, the relay closes, provides power to the solenoid on, this is electrical power, to the solenoid on the overdrive. Now, if you've got your foot off the throttle, the switch, the throttle switch that they're talking about is closed. That means it's making contact. So if you turn the overdrive off, that closed switch keeps the hold circuit of the solenoid powered until such time as you push the throttle, the switch opens and that unpowers the hold circuit in the relay. So we're talking about, we've got three things. We've got a relay, we've got a solenoid, and we've got a switch.
And a foot.
And a foot, yeah.
Thanks.
So I was,
Thank you for that.
I was
And
having
I-
that, I was
So
having that
Kevin,
problem.
Kevin, when you were talking about disengaging the overdrive, explain what you want to do. You're driving down the highway, you're in overdrive, you're in fourth gear, you want to get out of overdrive? Why wouldn't you just turn the switch
Switch off the
off?
switch off the switch, and tap the throttle.
Well, if I'm in third or fourth and I want to go from overdrive to take overdrive off and I toggle the switch down, I typically tap the gas.
That's correct.
And
That's
that's
what
the
Michael
point
just said.
that's the point that I was trying to make, Steve, if I didn't explain that correctly. And I
It's
thought that
funny,
was the correct procedure.
I just turn the switch off, and I usually just press in the clutch. It comes out of overdrive, and then I keep driving.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm not looking
yeah,
to
that's
push
another
him.
way of doing it. I don't have to put the clutch in, but I always felt that that was less strain on the system. I've been doing it
Yeah.
that way for 50 years. I don't know.
But if you do that and if you come out of overdrive just by pushing the clutch in, then that switch is not adjusted correctly. You should.
No, that's not it. I'm turning off the dash switch.
Yes.
I'm turning off the toggle on the dash. I do not want overdrive anymore. When I flick the toggle switch up, I just put the clutch in, because sometimes there would be a little bump or lunge as it came out. I'm trying to avoid that little bump or lunge. I shouldn't use the word lunge, more like a little thump as it came out. So I don't understand. If you don't want overdrive, you just turn the switch off.
No,
Yeah, but Steve, on my BJ8, that doesn't happen. It happens exactly as these fellows are describing. When I turn the switch, if I turn the switch off, I have to tap the gas to get the.
It's not adjusted correctly if you can do that.
Okay, well, the other thing is, maybe I didn't explain it correctly. If I'm putting the clutch in, I'm also coming off of gas.
Will if your foot is
So
off,
I want to disengage overdrive, turn the toggle off of the gas, down on the clutch.
Actually, what you need
And
to
then
do is
back on
what
back
you
off of the
need
clutch.
what you need to do is blip the throttle just a little bit, because as Mike was saying, there's you go into overdrive and there's another locking circuit that you don't really see, and to de-electric power that locking circuit that allows the overdrive solenoid to electrically depower, you have to blip the throttle to enable that two-step process to happen, so that the solenoid can de-electric power and comes out of overdrive. Is that about right, Mike?
And I guess when I come off the gas, it's doing that.
yeah, if you can do that, Steve, then that switch is not adjusted correctly. The idea, as I understand it, is that they're somehow back when they built those cars, they thought that there would be damage to or extra wear to the system if you could come out of overdrive with the engine holding the car back. That it was some problem that they felt that they needed a switch in there so that you couldn't back off and have the engine holding the car back going downhill and then come out of overdrive.
Yeah, that's correct. What you're saying there is the overdrive unit is designed to transmit power from the engine, that's horsepower, from the engine to the rear axle. It's not designed for the rear axle to try and accelerate the engine, which is what I'm saying. So if you are driving along with the throttle closed and you switch off the switch, the overdrive unit has to actually accelerate the crankshaft and the engine and the flywheel, and the overdrive unit apparently isn't designed to do that. However, the same overdrive unit is used in Triumph TR6s, and they don't have that switch.
Yeah, that's true.
Really? Well,
But
So
the
you-
TR6 doesn't have the torque that the Healy motor has.
Yeah, you need to have that switch properly adjusted. You're solving a problem, I guess, by holding the clutch in so there's no damage done. But the switch isn't properly adjusted.
So to go out of overdrive is a two-step process.
Yes,
Switch, blip,
yes,
blip the
yes.
throttle.
Yes, and it's very simple. You're going down a hill, you now want to switch out of overdrive, push the clutch in, switch it out of overdrive, and just flip the throttle, and you're there.
I was having that issue when I first got the car, and it was a bit alarming. But then when I read more about it, I had not been blipping the throttle and had not gone out of overdrives because essentially I didn't read the directions.
It really helps if you can ever see one of these switches taken apart. Also, if you can see a diagram, that helps. But when you see one apart, boy, it all just becomes crystal clear.
Yeah.
So I have another question. I'm in overdrive, fourth gear, 65 miles an hour. And I stomp all the way down on the gas. What happens? What should happen?
Are you switching out of overdrive?
No, I'm on the highway, 65, fourth gear, overdrive is in. No clutch.
The car
on the
should
gas,
accelerate.
and I step hold on.
Nothing should
Step
happen.
hard on the gas.
You should go faster.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
If you
what
slow
I'm
down, you're in trouble.
asking Is, no. Is it like passing gear? Is the overdrive supposed to disengage so I could accelerate fast?
Oh, like
No, but if you switch out of overdrive and step on the gas, it should automatically pop down.
I'm in overdrive. I'm in overdrive.
Yeah.
You're in overdrive. You step down on the gas.
You're
as long
saying
as
you're
as long
saying
as
that
the
if I
engine is pulling the car. When you switch off the overdrive, it should pop.
No. Listen to my words. 65 in overdrive.
Right.
You got me?
Yep.
I only step on the gas. That's all I do. Stays
Yeah.
in overdrive, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Unless you switch it off overdrive.
No.
No, no,
You
no,
answered
no,
my
no,
question.
no.
That's the way
No.
mine is.
it's like an automatic. He goes into passing gear.
Well, mine doesn't do that.
Correct. That's what I was trying. I know my car doesn't do that, but if you would think about what Mike was saying with the extra sensors, it almost would be like if you wanted to accelerate, would it slide out of overdrive all electronically so you could pick up your speed and then slide back
No.
into
Depends
overdrive?
what you-
The answer is no.
What do you do first? Here's what the thing. What do you do first? Do you step on the throttle first, or do you switch it out of overdrive?
No, you're not listening to me.
I am.
All
I am.
said is no. Time out. Listen. All I said is I step on the throttle.
If that's the first and only thing,
65.
it's going to stay in overdrive.
Listen,
Right.
it's going to stay in overdrive. It doesn't
Yes.
exit overdrive electronically to give me more power. There's no passing gear.
That's correct.
No,
It
no.
doesn't
Like
work
an
like a
automatic
kickdown
where
switch.
shift down. Okay. Mike, am I
Steve.
right or wrong?
You're right, unless you're in your Corvette, then you're gonna get an extra turbocharge.
But it's an
Wait a
automatic.
minute. I'm doing 65
But if
and I step on the gas in the Corvette. I'm in another time zone. Okay.
Yeah. It's not automatic. It's not automatic transmission. There's no kickdown gear.
Right.
Let's put that. Right. You're in fifth gear. You're going to stay in fifth gear until such time you go click electrically, blip with the throttle, then you go back to fourth gear.
All right. Okay.
Now,
Are there
question.
any other questions besides overdrive questions?
Please.
I was just going to ask if you can bypass that switch so that you can just turn the overdrive off and on without having to hit the gas.
Well, the switch is designed to protect the overdrive.
Right, but I mean,
If you
theoretically you could bypass that.
If you do
Oh, yeah.
bypass the switch, and you happen to be in the situation we're describing, where you're going down a hill real fast in overdrive, and you flick it, you turn the dashboard switch off, it's hard on the overdrive.
Right, exactly. That's why that switch is there. Yeah.
Okay, there was another question, was, please.
A question about
Wait a minute,
headlights.
Mike, wait a minute, go ahead.
Sorry.
So I put in a question. I'm replacing the carpeting in my car.
Yeah.
3 types of carpeting. Which is the better one to use? I've used the one from Moss, which has a rubber back on it. That's what's in the car now, and it's all disintegrated. I've used a Carville one out of UK from Healy Spares, right? But then there's another wool carpet, right? And then there's a German loop carpet. Which one should I use? I don't care about the price. I just want one that's going to hold up and last. You know what I mean?
You come into money,
Well-
John.
Yeah. I got the money from that BT7 I sold.
So John, I'm using a carpet kit from Jeff Chrysler, and that out in Vancouver, and
Yeah, I
I've been
called
very
him.
pleased with it. What's that?
I called him.
Yeah,
And he has I think they use the wool carpet. What backing is on?
I don't recall, but I put it in a couple of years ago, and I'm very pleased with it in my BJ.
Was it hard to work with?
You had
The
to
wool-
work it.
Was it
The
easy to
wool
work
car-
with?
The wool carpet has a rubber backing, and
Yeah.
it is easy to work with. The Carvel carpet that
It's
is
horrible.
coming out is junk.
Yeah.
It's too stiff to work with. The pile is too open, and when you get it contoured round any corner or curve, the pile is so open that you can see through to the back.
Yeah, okay.
It doesn't stay where you put it.
Yeah.
We've had various trials with the Carvel, is soaking it in hot water and beating
Doesn't
it with
work.
a hammer, and it just doesn't seem to want to. It doesn't want to.
I ended up with the Carville for that BT7, actually cutting it and molding it where it had to go, and then resewing. But it was horrible work. But the Moss one is not wool, but it has a rubber back on.
Yeah, it's just a cheap imitation. If you
Yeah,
get the
but what happened was all the rubber backing came off the carpet, and then all the pile fell off. So
Nice.
you're saying wool carpet?
Yeah, the other supplier is what they call a Jaguar quality wool carpet, and it has a rubber backing, and it's very good.
All right.
The carpet I had put in mine, and I don't recall what it was, but it did have a little flap so that I could check the transmission fluid.
Well,
which I didn't
actually,
on my original car did not have that.
The Moss carpet has that, but it fell apart. The Carville carpet didn't have that out of UK, but I cut that in anyway and put it in myself. But it's just too hard to work with. So I think that the guy in BC, does he use the Jaguar carpet?
Yes.
Does he?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I spoke to him.
Jeff Chrysler.
Yeah, I talked to him. All right. So that was my question. All right. Thank you.
Welcome, John. Other questions?
But you should know, John, that we supply that carpet too.
Well, the thing is, I have that U.S. money, and Canadian money really sucks right now. So I gotta find somebody that supply will take U.S. currency.
Hell, we'll take Japanese yen. We'll take them.
Craig, do you have a question or comment?
A few years back, I bought my BN to Healy. It was 1986. And I was at the Barrie Flea Market, and I picked up some of this carpet that was on a roll. And it's exactly the same texture as what was normally in a Healy or any of the BMC cars. And on the back, when you flipped it over, it was just like Armacord. you can't even find that stuff now. But I did my whole Healey, the inside and outside, and then the trunk, just flipped the carpet over and there was the Armacord. But it's unavailable. I've tried to find it, and I go to all the carpet guys, even when I was down in Hershey or Carlisle, but haven't been able to find it. But it's really good stuff. And it's still in the car. That's 40 years ago.
Wow.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, very good. Okay.
I
Other
want to
questions?
I wanted
Please.
to mention y'all there was a cool schematic at the end of I think 3 magazines ago, Mark, about the Overdrive. Very cool. I learned a lot about the relays and everything from that. It's in 1 or 2 magazines ago, a schematic
Okay.
about the Overdrive.
Well, again, you can always go on to the website, healyclub.org, and look at all those. We have all that digitally now too. So it's all that information is there. You don't have to go back and find your old Healy mark. It's all online too.
And if you want some entertainment, try to figure out the diagram for a BN1.
Well, just a note, if somebody needs an overdrive, I have one in good
Okay.
condition.
22% or 28%, John?
22.
22. Okay.
I had a
So they can't-
28. Somebody was going to sell me a 28, but he sold it to somebody else.
Okay. Sorry to hear that.
So,
Well, Bob Yule?
there's only the quick and the hungry, John.
Okay.
A question about headlights. Is there? I know for my Spitfire, I got a relay set from Moss. They just kind of plug in to have more power to the headlights without using the panel-mounted rocker switch. Can one do that with the Healey, or is it advisable like to install relays? And could you use the same ones that I got for the Spitfire? Like just have more electrical power going to the headlights for brighter lights, or what would you use for brighter lights? Mine has the tripod lights, so I'd rather keep those. But what can I do to increase my my headlight power?
The headlight switch shouldn't be producing any resistance in the circuit unless there's something wrong with the switch. However, what you are doing, if you take a power wire right to the relay and the relay is right near the headlights, you can probably minimize the voltage loss in the wiring going to the headlights. But I would suggest to you that it's a hell of a lot better to put LED headlamp bulbs in.
And are they direct replacements? What they call H10s? Is that it?
Yeah. You can get direct replacements, and they are brilliant. They are bright.
And is there a power adapter that sort of sits behind it, or is it just a direct replacement? Just
the ones that I have are just a direct replacement. Have you got sealed beams, or have you got bulbs?
No, I've got bulbs with
straight direct replacements for the bulbs.
Okay, because I
9003.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Say that again, Craig.
9003.
Is that a Moss number or what? No, 9003.
No, Amazon.
Amazon 9003.
Yes.
Well, you said you can get it through Amazon.
But I should mention to you that if you've got a positive ground car, then if you're using LEDs, you have to get special positive ground bulbs. They only work in one direction. They won't work the other way around.
Will it work if you just reverse the wires?
No. No, you actually have to get the negative ground or positive ground LED bulb.
Okay, so this Amazon 9003, is that a positive ground?
I've
LED?
never bought them. I've never bought them from Amazon.
Somebody just mentioned the Amazon 9003. I just want to make sure I got that.
So you know what Amazon is, right, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay. So just do a Google search on that, and what Craig was suggesting is that the bulb number is 9003.
Okay, so I'm just looking for, on Amazon, headlight bulb 9003. Okay.
Michael, I missed the manufacturer of those bulbs.
The outfit I use, I sent the information to you like a couple of weeks ago, Peter.
Yeah.
What's the name? What are the name of the place? Generator Conversions or something or other? I can't remember.
I don't have that right in front of me, unfortunately, Michael.
I got
Sorry.
them from a company in the UK, and they are, I think they're called regulator conversions. They convert voltage regulators to electronic regulators, and they're really good. And they happen to sell the bulbs as well. They're not cheap, but they're very good.
Thank you.
Peter will put it on the website.
Okay, so Michael, this is the voltage indicator, the USB sock. No, I don't think that's it.
Peter, can we
Okay.
put that? Can we put that
Yeah.
on our website?
It was the same day.
Yes. Yes, we can. Yeah, I'll find that and I'll add that to the website.
Sure.
Great.
And I'll send it to you, Ted.
Yeah, well, one of the names that comes up is Firehawk bulbs or some such. I'll keep looking. Thanks.
What I did, Michael or Mike Hirsch, is I bought all new seal beam units from Bugeye Guy, and they're awesome.
Okay.
And I get them in both my 100 and my BJ8.
Okay.
A nice, crisp, white light.
And
Not yellow.
They're LED, Pete?
They're LED, yes.
Okay.
And they're seal beamed. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, because I was trying to keeping. I'd like to keep the tripods if I could.
These are tripods, but they're seal beamed.
Oh, so they look the same. Okay, well that's
They look
cool.
identical.
And so it's from the
Bugeye Guy.
Bugeye Guy.
Yep. Yeah, again, they weren't cheap. They were a couple $100, but it's a much crisper, whiter light.
Hey, if it prevents you from getting hit, my mantra whenever I'm with a new crew is three magic words: use no bondo.
There you go. So, okay.
Thank you.
Other questions tonight?
I haven't got. I got an inquiry.
Please.
Over the years, I've been involved in dozens of engine rebuilds, and I'm always curious that when I take the cylinder heads apart, there's always a piece of wire in the cooling channel in the head, and I just, for the life of me, can't understand why this wire is in there. And I've just done another motor this last week, and I pulled out a piece of wire. It's about 18 inches long, and it was just laying in the cooling channel in the head. Does anybody have any idea why this wire would be in there? I seem to find them in all the 6-cylinder heads, but they're not in the 4 cylinders. I surmise it's something to do with the casting process, but just what I have no idea.
Presumably that motor had never been apart, Bob?
The motor I'm just doing has never been apart.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
Nothing to do with temperature sensing, huh?
No, it's a piece of like coat hanger wire. I got a piece right here, but I don't know if you can.
I like my theory, Bob.
What's that, Michael?
I think they put a piece of wire inside the casting sand to break up the casting sand to help get it out. Could be wrong, but I think that's probably a good bet. As we discussed, Bob.
Yeah, I know it's probably, yeah, it's as good an explanation as I can get, I'm just puzzled as to why they left it in there. Why didn't they take it out?
How did you find something that long in the head? Like, was it lined linear or down
So it's
inside?
playing lengthways in the head, and I just pulled it out through the thermostat hole.
Wow.
Huh. Well, all I can say, Bob, is when I did that BT7, that engine hadn't been apart. It had the same pistons in it as from the factory, and there's no wire in the head. And if there was, it's still there.
Yeah, you would jip then if there wasn't one there.
You didn't get that special wire, huh?
I would have left
Okay.
it in.
Yep. So, well, thank you all for joining. I appreciate that. Our next call will be January 13th. Again, we do record this, and we will be posting this out on the YouTube channel. So Rick Neville posted our YouTube channel, and then we also posted on our website. So again, so HCA-newengland.org and password's Healey, lowercase, and that way you can go back and see any of our past technical calls. So a happy holidays to all. Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Merry
Merry
Christmas. 2025.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you,
Thank
Pete.
you.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
Merry
Thank you.
Christmas,
Fun,
Peter.
everybody.
Happy
Bye-bye.
Yes,
holidays.
thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Sure.